So I'm sort of taking it upon myself to put posts out there, to get in front of people, to do presentations, things like that, just to communicate to the greater industry that, really, I guess, to inform and educate what goes into being a certifier, to see that, it's not a quick and nasty type of job where we can, put our hand out, get paid and then leave.
Wahbe, welcome to the Entrepreneurial Engineer podcast. Thanks so much for coming on.
Thanks, Darren. Thank you so much for having me.
So, mate, let me know what got you out of bed this morning and what mission are you currently on?
What got me out of bed this morning? Well, I'm a bit of a routine freak at the moment. I love to go to the gym first thing in the morning and have a coffee, really sets my day up. I, really, every day, the private certification world is pretty interesting. You're a public official making decisions every single day and leading a team. But, my general mission every day is to basically make good decisions and do a good job that's going to benefit the public. And that could be, something as simple as talking to the team about what they got on their list of things to do today, and or a tricky condition they might be dealing with, or something like that. But just talking to them every day is a sign of good leadership, I think. So I like to have a bit of a group mentality for things like that.
So, I mean, you mentioned the word the public, and something that comes up a lot about engineering for the public. Have you ever heard of the term humanitarian engineer, and would you consider yourself one?
I I don't know if I've actually heard of it sort of in the realms that I work in with legislation and development engineers and local government engineering and things like that. But basically, the decisions that I make have a direct impact on the public today and for the future forever. Like the things that we do, we're setting up new roads, new lots, new communities, basically, and we don't want to put ourselves in a situation where we're creating a poor outcome that's literally going to be there forever. So it's really important that we make good decisions that's going to have a positive impact forever. And the best impacts are the ones that people don't even think about because it's not a problem. So, I guess I would consider myself a humanitarian in that sense because, the decisions that I would make off the back of approvals granted by consent authorities have a big impact and are definitely long lasting.
I mean, look, there's hopefully a lot of young engineers out there listening, and they maybe don't really understand what the role of a certifier is, maybe what you do. Can you unpack that for us and just give us a bit of detail around that? Because it seems like, there's engineers and, you're an engineer, it's great, but you don't actually design, you certify. So can you walk us through that to give
Yeah,
the audience a bit of a clarification on that?
totally. I think probably the best way to explain it is to just give you a quick snapshot of where I started from uni to where I got to right now. I went and did a civil engineering degree straight after school. And probably like most young engineers out there, the first couple of years was just, having a bit of fun at uni. And then sort of as the back end of that, you sort of buckle down to get the work done and get your graduation done. From there, I was lucky enough to get a job in a design engineering firm, just doing a bit of design consulting work. And to be honest, I'm not a creative person, so I'm good at maths. I'm a good communicator, but was not a creative person. Like I do have some problem solving skills back then, but wasn't my forte. But I applied for a position at a development engineering position at Blacktown Council, not really knowing what a development engineer was. Like I knew what a civil engineer was, I knew what a structural engineer was. And to be honest, I went and had this interview at Blacktown Council and thought I'd totally tanked the interview because they were asking me these questions and I was like, honestly, like, I'm just going to answer these to the best that I can and be honest when I didn't know it. And I think the honesty and the fact that I could communicate half decently back then sort of led me with the opportunity at council. And as you know, like at council, you're the consent authority. So in the development industry, you've got development applications that grant development consents for subdivision works. So new roads, new lots, could be drainage lines, OSD tanks, all sorts of roads, infrastructure works, all of that stuff. And then you've got basically the planning framework sets it up. So you've got a DA, then you've got what used to be called a construction certificate for subdivision works, now called subdivision work certificate. So you've got a certificate that authorizes the construction of those works. Then you've got inspections, and then you've got a subdivision certificate at the end. And basically, the way the legislation works, council is in control of that whole process, but there is a slim opportunity for registered certifiers to be competitive for the subdivision work certificate space. And basically, after 6 years of council and having a bloody brilliant mentor early on in my career, it's really put me in a really good position to take up an opportunity to be a certifier outside of council. It's become a certifier as a mission in itself. Like, there's only 10 certifiers in New South Wales that can do what I do. And that's mainly because you've got to have a civil engineering degree, 5 years like government experience. You need to write a thesis level report demonstrating how you're competent against the legislation, engineering, and you need to be backed by other certifiers. And then after that, the fair trading look at you as a person, as an individual, to say, are you a good citizen? Are you going to make good decisions? Because even though you're not in council, you're still a public official. And basically, the fair trading still have the opportunity to say, nah, you're not worthy of being a certifier, and reject your application. So that's why there's only 10 of us. Anyway, did all that, was able to be granted the certification. And yeah, here I am today as a director of land development certificates and registered certified. So although there's only limited opportunity for us to do that subdivision work certificate, which is just one of the services that we provide, there's huge benefits in using us for that service in particular.
It's crazy. Like 1 in 10. I mean, that almost feels like a monopoly, Chris. So, for all the young engineers out there, I mean, it sounds like an amazing journey, and it's really nice to sort of see how that progression worked. And how did you think this could be something that I want to do and I'm going to target? And then for all the other young engineers out there, like, you've sort of given the stepping stones that you need to go through, but what else do you think that a young engineer would need to do other than tick those boxes to get to where you are?
So for me, there was like a number of things that were really important to me, and I sort of identified early. One, having an absolute brilliant mentor. So I positioned myself, I was lucky to be positioned in a situation where I had like this old bloke at council that had done everything before. He'd built roads, he'd built drainage lines, he knew the specifications inside out, and he actually had the time and desire to teach me, and I was willing to learn. So that set me off in the right direction. That by itself is not good enough for me. I've never been the type of person just to sort of wing it, or, just show up and, be taught something and that's it. Like, even back in uni days, like I have to knuckle down, work hard, and understand it myself for me to be able to do things properly. So working hard and putting the effort in has definitely generated success for me and created opportunities that I don't believe would have been there if I didn't put that work in. So that's those two are the main three things. And then the last thing for me, I only want to do really what I want to do, a job or work that brings me satisfaction. And I was in council, started as a development engineer, climbed the ladder pretty quickly, in fairness, probably quicker than I was ready for. But I got to a sort of middle management position where like the core engineer in me was sort of the role that I was in didn't allow me to lean on my experience as a civil engineer. Like I was more sites to become political or answering problems that it was not really engineering. So that's why this opportunity to be a certifier, particularly in the space of delivering works or certifying works, where you're writing your name on something and that has a physical outcome like that, for me just brought the most satisfaction. So I didn't know what a certifier was when I joined council, but I sort of, as time went on, I knew what I liked and what the opportunities were. This presented itself.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, look, not just having a mentor, but being willing to learn, that is a marriage made in heaven. And I think if you can capture both of those things, I think you'll do really well. So tell me about your transition from essentially council, where you're, really just as an authority doing what you do, to then transition to consultant, where you actually have to sell what you do. Tell me about that transition, and
Yeah.
how did that go for you? And yeah, what is probably the things that you look at through that transition that got to where you are?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. So I, again, off the back of hard work at council, you sort of um, do generate a bit of a name for yourself. People are like, yep, oh, Chris is the engineer on this DA. We know that it's going to be pretty reasonable. It's going to make us work hard, but we're going to get to the end. And back then I used to show the path from beginning to end and just be like, try to manage their expectations and my expectations early so we could get to the end. I think that's probably one of the reasons why I was able to climb the ladder pretty quickly, just because people knew what they were going to get if they had worked with me. And as you know, when you're in council, council basically have a monopoly on the DA, or they definitely do. They're the consent authority. Not so much of a monopoly in the SWC space, but then inspections and subs, so they're the only authority that can issue those approvals for that service. So I was involved with the same people over and over and over again, being in a council area where they were trying to grow the council by 300,000 residents in like a 10-year time frame or something like that. So it was definitely booming. It was the right place to be in, that's for sure. And because I sort of spread my wings in terms of clients that I dealt with, I built a bit of a name for myself. By the time an opportunity came up to go to certification, I had already built those relationships. So that was, in hindsight, critical for me, because once I had transitioned over and here I am as a certifier, as an alternative to council, it was a bit more of a smoother transition in trying to get those clients over as customers, if you like, to land on the certificates. So, and then same thing, they'd used me, they knew what they could expect out of me, what I could expect out of them, and got the job done.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, you not only manage expectations where in one role, then you've used your networks and connections to leverage you into another, where then you have to sell that service. So yeah, I could definitely see that. You said making a name for yourself. I think there's layers of trust in that, and yeah, very important to realize that. Going from something where you don't have to sell your service to somewhere where you do, even when you're not selling, you're building the foundations to know that if one day I had to, that you could at least lean on those networks and connections to do so.
Yeah, 100%. That's right. And trust is everything. Like with what we do, we are a public official. We've got so many roles and responsibilities, and at the end of the day, with what I do, like it's my personal name going on these things. So they last forever. And although we argue that we make mistakes from time to time, like you need to have good processes in place and good business practices in place to make sure that you delivering good outcomes. So that's and then when you do a good job, and people have good experience with you, it's less of an effort to try to sell your service, because people have got that experience and level of trust in what you do.
Mm. So tell me, okay, so I'll take a little step back, holistic view. Some engineers done some design, someone else has pulled something together. There's a lot of value creation in that. As a certifier, how do you create value? Because some people would take a moment and think, oh, there's just a box ticking exercise for what you do.
Yeah, I think that it couldn't be further from a box ticking exercise, if I'm honest, because um, we're basically governed by the legislation, we're governed by the conditions of consent, and we're governed by um, engineering specification for particular councils, and every single council is different. Um, sort of laid over all of that is your approach, your practical approach, your best practice approach type of thing to answer these types of questions and how you apply yourself to these jobs. So it's sort of through experience and through, I think, good, effective communication with the client, with all the key stakeholders to understand exactly what they want, and understanding that for me, the very first decision at the start of every decision that I make is what I'm approving going to be in the public's interest. Yes, the developer's paying our invoice. Yes, I'm dealing with a designer that's probably spent 5 hours designing this thing that I'm going to critique or ask questions on. You got to understand where people are coming from for you to be able to do a good job. And like that's so important for a certifier, because it's all well and good to say, yep, that vertical curve complies with Ostro's stick. What's next? Okay, that all looks like it's going right. Like you got to look at the bigger picture of what you're actually delivering. Is it in the public's interest? Does it comply? And yeah, it's off the back of that gets you good outcomes.
Yeah, no, I love that. Coming back again to that human centered design approach, what's best for the public, big picture. I mean, that is definitely where you're going to add value. So I love that. You touched on a point about, and I think in the media, there is a bit of and I think for engineers in general, a negative perception, particularly with, the building commissioner, the Design Building Practitioners Act, engineers, certifiers. I feel like we're getting a bad rap. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so I I sort of liken it to, when you're back at school, in your class, there's 30 kids, and, the 2 or 3% of the kids that are a bit naughty in class sort of bring everyone down. Same sort of thing, I think, with certification. However, because all certifiers, whether you're building, subdivision, whatever, we all sort of operate under the same piece of legislation, the Building and Development Certifiers Act and regs. And yeah, it only takes a small percentage to bring everyone down. So, it's really unfortunate to hear about some of these stories in the media about, buildings that are not quite up to spec or whatever. Mind you, some of those stories, some were certifiers and some were council, but the general perception out there is, oh, yep, the dodgy certifiers approved another thing that doesn't work. So I've sort of taken it upon myself, and probably similar to yourself, where I definitely want to change that negative perception. And I feel like certainly the people within my circle or people within the industry that have used this understand that we're the opposite. Like we've got so many rules, restrictions, processes in place to make sure that we do a good job. We couldn't be further from a dodgy stigma. So I'm sort of taking it upon myself to put posts out there, to get in front of people, to do presentations, things like that, just to communicate to the greater industry that, really, I guess, to inform and educate what goes into being a certifier, to see that, it's not a quick and nasty type of job where we can, put our hand out, get paid, and then leave. Like what we approve stays around forever. And, I could approve a subdivision where 30 years from now, something could go wrong, and they're going to pick it up and go, oh, yep, Chris Wahbe certified this, and give me a call and be like, what's this problem? So literally stays with me forever. That's why we have insurance, runoff cover, all of that. So it's important to know what you're going into before you start to become a certified. But like, I love it. Like, I think I'm pretty good at managing risk and identifying what is and isn't appropriate and my responsibilities. And yeah, that's how you do a good job. And there's certainly been plenty of jobs out there where I could see what the person's trying to do is not appropriate, and I've let that job go because I'm not interested in not doing the right thing, basically.
Mm. Oh, look, you touched on so many points, but I guess one of them really is about how important are ethics to you as a certifier. I mean, Engineers Australia Code of Ethics. I mean, it's abundantly clear. I mean, for you though, it feels like there's even an added layer that maybe most engineers or other professionals don't get to see.
Yeah, no, it's just, I guess, even just the personal value of mine. So, and definitely in a professional sense, like there's no, yeah, I could even draw it all the way back to the way I was raised nearly, So,
Yeah.
you got to respect your elders and, what you say and do means something to people, and, you really got to listen to others, all of that stuff. Um, but I think certainly in the professional sense, like with what we do, like I take it more seriously than anything I ever do in the sense that I am a public official. Like, yes, I'm not working for council. I'm basically a state certifier. Like, the state gives me my license, so I can just do what council does, but over all of New South Wales. Um, yeah, they need to drive around a few of these existing areas where there's black spots or flooding issues and things like that. And I don't want to be involved in creating those types of problems. I want to be involved where I'm creating good outcomes, where people don't even have to think about it, because they've got the trust that they're going to drive on a road that works, or when it rains, the water's going to go in the pits and pipes.
Yeah.
That those are the best scenarios, I guess. But yeah, for me, I don't want to. It's just built into me with the ethical approach. I don't want to cut any corners.
Mm. Yeah, no doubt. Now, it's something that I pondered some time ago, and I wanted to get your thoughts on it. And it was about almost like a uh, council development control and engineering guideline or standard that was standardized across metropolitan and or regional New South Wales. With, I deal with many councils, and all of the standards codes, from verges, grades to minimums, maximums,
Yeah,
widths, all of it is all different. Every
yeah,
council's got their own standard. There's their own engineering guideline. We've got DCPs on DCPs on DCPs, which I can appreciate in a site specific context.
yeah.
But then I'm just not seeing any standardization across the market there. What's your take on that? And do you think something like that would be a good idea?
Yeah, no, that's a great, great point that you raise, because it's so true. Like, there's so many different councils out there that have their own spec. Even the same council with multiple specs, sort of after a bunch of councils have merged together a few
Yep.
years ago. But what, in my experience, the individual councils, excuse me, have got a reason behind the variances, like a historical reason, like a truck being able to do a 3-point turn in a cul-de-sac head, or one council's particular on trees, or another council's particular on curb types, or whatever. There's some historical reason for that. At the end of the day, personally, I would love for there just to be one set of standards for all engineering works. I know that the industry has tried to do that a couple of times now.
Yep.
I think it's, in my opinion, it's probably like too many chiefs type of scenario where everyone's trying to put their 2 cents in and get something over someone else or something like that to get their specification in there. But from a pure engineering view, and delivering on something that works, in my mind, there's no reason why you can't have one set of rules and just apply it. Like, the there's a national construction code for, the builders. So why can't there be that for engineers? Like, I totally get, like, some councils are big on water quality, or, there might be coastal sort of environmental impacts that will govern a certain type of thing, but would that be applicable for, out rural New South Wales? Things like that, fair enough. But for the vast majority of it, and I've worked across so many different councils, there's really no reason why it can't just be one set of standards. And I would love for that to happen.
36% of listeners won't subscribe to this podcast, and that's a real shame. If you want to help me share the stories and help others learn and grow, then please like and subscribe.
It's just, maybe it needs to be driven by the state rather than all the councils banding together.
Yep. No, I hear that. So yeah, and it was sort of like a follow-on question, because being in development at the moment, I've got layers of authority requirements. I've got authorities who their requirements differ to another authority's requirements, and then you're sort of caught in the middle trying to navigate and negotiate between authorities. How much interaction do you have in that space, and what are some of the issues you're seeing with that particular risk right now in development?
Yeah, so I mean, the best way I can answer that question is sort of drawing it back down to the DA. So as you know, when you've got a DA, the council's got to send all the different referrals out to the different authorities and bring back their conditions, and then they sort of slap their conditions into the consent. And what I'm finding is not every council, but a lot of councils out there, I'm not sure if they're realizing that there's conflicting conditions that call up different specs and different requirements. However, the subdivision is approved, and it's only until you go through every single little thing to see how you're going to deliver this thing and approve it, that you find that there's inconsistencies and conflicting requirements. So me as a certifier, when it's really ultra clear that in the EP&A Act, that's what we're meant to do in those scenarios, and that is refer back to the consent authority to get clarification. Sometimes we do have flexibility to understand the intent of what a condition's saying in a requirement, and make a decision to make sure that the intent of the DA is delivered. But it does become ultra difficult when you've got competing requirements from different authorities, because the council is the owner of the consent. They should be able to identify where things are inconsistent or what the actual intent outcome is, and be able to have that backwards and forwards, and then deliver the DA that can just be operated from start to finish.
Yeah, I mean, look, being in the throes of it as we speak, different percentages. Someone wants something, we can't do something else. Someone says, "I'll talk to this referral body before we'll give you our comments," and then you're thinking, "Well, hold on, what if I do what they want, but you don't like it?" It'd be very nice to find, and I think I've talked about this in the past, just that real key decision maker in terms of all those referral bodies. And, whether or not that's the role of a certifier or council or some independent someone, having that clarity, I believe would really speed up the approval pathway in New South Wales.
Oh, 100%. I couldn't agree more. Particularly with DAs, like, we're not even talking about CDCs or stratas and those frameworks to get those approvals, because they are super streamlined. But in the DA space, like, if it was that's, I guess, just to circle back, like, all the way back to what my mentor told me, like, there's so much value in, like, getting up out of your seat and going to walk to the town planner, or going to speak to the flooding guy, or speak to traffic or whatever, so you're producing a condition that's meaningful and that's going to get the right outcome. And at the same time, like, you're building relationships with that person. Instead of just hiding behind your keyboard and sending the referrals off. Like, personally, I've just found that face-to-face interaction to be so valuable, and you get like, I'm not trying to be rude or anything, but you end up getting what you want and you've built a good connection and relationship. So it's a win-win.
Oh, look, I'll tell you right now, it is a challenge with a lot of the young engineers I mentor. You know, that keyboard warrior approach, not being able to talk to people, articulate your arguments and logic and engineering. I mean, I believe that is the whole role of an engineer is to, unpack, decipher technical, complex ideas into, more simplistic, easy to understand solutions so that we can move forward in a way that means that everyone gets what they want. But there's still obviously the solution in mind. So you've definitely hit the nail on the head there.
Yeah. That's yeah. That's I sort of like had a great mentor taught me like or suggested that I do that. I implemented that in my day-to-day approach. You learn so much out of the old gurus and counsel or whatever. So many people in the industry that know so much,
Yeah.
and it's really important to listen to what they have to say. And if you do that, then more often not going to listen to what problem you've got and or what you need to say. Then as you say, you're going to get to where you want to be in the end.
Yeah. So tell me, what's your biggest challenge at the moment with where you are, both not just professionally, but industry wise? What's the big burning ticket that's just giving you a lot of sleepless nights?
um, so, I mean, for any certifier, but for me in particular, being trying to be an advocate for certifiers and being on different committees and things like that, like we are recognized by the state to be able to do the entire suite of certification from not including DAs, but we're able to do SWCs, inspections, and subdivision certificates. And the government gives that in one hand, and then in the other hand takes that away or really limits our opportunity to get involved in more than just the SWC. So that is by far the biggest hurdle that we want to overcome because although I say that there's only 10 registered certifiers, like fully registered certifiers that can do what we do. Like we've got teams underneath us and we can offer so much more than what we're sort of pigeonholed to do.
Yeah.
And like what's I guess disappointing or just doesn't make sense to me is here there I was a 1 year out of uni type of engineer that was in council and was able to approve a subdivision, do all the inspections for it, and sign and recommend subdivision certificate approval. Where now I've got 15 years experience running multiple teams, but I'm unable to do the full extent of works that I can do. That's the biggest thing, and I think that's just advocating to the government and different people in the industry to say I see ourselves as part of a solution to the current problem, housing crisis, blockages in approvals, all that. Like if we were allowed to do what we're professionally and insured to do, like it'd be fantastic. And I think we'll go a long way in solving that problem.
Mm. And just to dig into that, does that require a legislation change?
Believe it or not, there's actually only one word in the EPNA Act that needs to
Wow.
change for us to be able to do all that work.
What is that word?
If an and becomes an or in I think it's 612(5) of the Act or something like that, then we can do everything that we're professionally able to do. So but
Yeah, well, I tell you what, I feel like there's a post coming out of that. I can
yeah, I'll for your listeners, I will give you the correct reference so you know what I'm
Yeah,
talking
please.
about.
Yeah, we'll drop it. We'll drop it in the comments when we launch this, most definitely. So it sort of takes me to my next question. We've got low rise CDC, we've got patent books, we've got people looking at different approval mechanisms for things like dual locks. Literally carbon copy. Follow this; it's approved. We've got SEPs in place that mean that people can do certain things without going to councils or whatnot. Then we've also got the role of, I'll call it broadly AI. We've got machine learning. There's these plug and play almost like site-based, engineering architectural models that you can just copy and paste stuff in. Councils are using this for their consent conditions. They're using these tools to be able to automate some of their planning, some of their consent, maybe even some of their review and assessment. If I just took a very, holistic view and maybe an aggressive one, I would say in 20 years' time, you don't need a certifier. It's just going to be automated. There's going to be a robot checking stuff, right?
Yeah.
What's your take on that? And obviously, it is, I'm not taking your job away from you, Chris. But, just looking into the future, and I think we're there. I can see a lot of it coming. Maybe not in the high rise space,
Yeah.
but if there was, a particular site with a particular grade and you follow this pattern book or whatever it is, it's just approved. You don't even need to go to someone like an engineer like me or a certifier like you. It's just tick. What's
Yeah.
your take on that?
Yeah, that's good point. And technology is impacting so many different industries. But with what you said there, particularly around CDCs and things like that, where it's, compliant development under the code set, there's stipulated, regulated development standards that need to be met for the development to pass or comply. So that is a rigid, literally black and white approach for particularly for subdivisions. The subdivision of dual lot terraces, pattern books, whatever, like it
Yeah.
is straightforward. Um, I reckon, yeah, maybe a certifier 20 years from now will be an IT type person that looks at like it's the person that receives this information out of the machine that says yes, it passes. I reckon the machine approach could probably get 80% of it correct. And
Yeah.
then you do need that human element to make whatever key decision you need to make sure that it does fully comply. So even if it was, you upload it and you get it spits out an answer in 2 minutes, I still think a human would definitely need to be involved. But maybe 80% is too much or not enough. I'm not sure, but there's so much that can be automated. It's not funny. So, because the development standards are what they are. They know, because I do that every single day, like the way the code set works, it refers you to different LEPs for different things. I've looked, there's over 200 APIs in New South Wales and I've read every single one. Like I know what the rules are, but like a machine you could just put all that data into that and get the same answer probably a lot quicker than I could do it. But the things like subdivision works where you're building new roads, lots, drainage, all of that stuff. Like I still think it's used. Like I think an engineer, like a pure core engineer with engineering skills, is by far more valuable than AI. I think because like there's so many decisions that need to be made like individually and how it impacts a greater scenario. And in my personal opinion, I don't think that will ever go away. Like I think you need engineers with good skill set, good decision making to be able to get the right outcome for those ones.
Yeah, indeed. I mean, I've joked a lot about, robots building houses and, robots checking robots. And then you have a checker robot that checks the checker robot. And, you can only see that is the obvious future. But I'm glad to hear that you're going to go from full-time down to 1 day a week. I'm sure you'll enjoy your holidays and whatnot. And also and in jest, but I do see a future of pattern book, and that to me feels very logical. And as I mentioned, maybe not for complexity or, high rise, but, to be able to look at something where, and I wanted to ask you about things like the Todd set or rezoning of R2 to R3, those sorts of things. And maybe we'll just go with the R2 to R3. If there was a view to rezone, say, 1 kilometre from all commercial / town / community centres, call it shop stop housing, call it, the core of what the suburb is. If there was a rezone between, from R2 to R3, what sort of impact would that have on you? How could you see that working within the market? And, can you see that that would just mean dual occupancy is just exploding? Or do you think it would
Yeah.
just be a moment where everyone just goes, meh, and not much would really happen?
Yeah.
What's your take on that? Because that's sort of my idea around how we could progress, and at least tackle some of this housing crisis moving forward.
Yeah. So that's where I want to start. Like I'm all for implementing new rules that's going to help solve this problem because I believe in the problem and it's real and it's going to be a forever problem that we're forever trying to chase our tail unless something like this happens.
Yeah.
Um, Australia's a growing country we've got so many people coming that want to live here and, people want to live near where their parents grew up or whatever, and it's to work and we're just going to make it affordable basically. But obviously, like straight away, most people say, "Oh, the current road network in the brownfield area can't support, um, the additional 10 cars or the additional population, and the services in the ground doesn't have enough capacity to take on." Like, I think most of that is legit. Like, there's probably real scenarios where that is the case, but and so I think you need buy-in from different utility authorities and state government to be part of that journey and process to upgrade whatever needs to be upgraded. But where it is possible, like I think 100% we need to do it. And I think whether people have different views on this, but I think it is going to probably explode to be dual locks everywhere and
Yep.
terraces and
Yep.
maybe different level of density as you get closer to stations or whatever. But
Yep.
it's kind of already happening now. Like when the low
Yes.
rise guide was implemented in 2020, like properly, like it's been such a popular approach because it does get you a streamlined approval and it allows you to do dual lots where you wouldn't otherwise be allowed to do it. Not just purely based off the approval pathway, but it does sort of unlock a scenario where you can deliver more housing. So I'm waving the flag for it because I think it will actually explode and it'll make people like me and other building certifiers and council so much more busy because it is such a popular streamlined approach, which is what we need.
Yeah. Well, at least before the robots take over, right?
Yes. Yeah, we've got what 20 years or 10 years to get in there before that take over.
Yeah. I can see you building one right now.
Yeah.
You touched on a few points there, not just utilities, but traffic. And these seem to be the things that, a lot of people talk to. But I know there's a lot of listeners out there who would just be like, hey, if I could do a dual lock on my block, I'd be knocking it down tomorrow and selling the other half, or, really pushing the housing supply issue to look at housing affordability close to centers. Like, there's so many good news stories in that. So yeah, I really hope you can, wave that flag because I think we need more of that in industry, those new ideas, thinking outside the box. And I think the whole point of the entrepreneurial engineer is not just, to talk about engineering, but it's about how to do things in a better way. So yeah, I
Literally.
really appreciate that.
And there's probably things that I didn't mention, like schools and parks and hospitals, like all
Yeah.
that stuff is all captured in there that needs to be looked at. It's not just about delivering houses. Like there's what, people got to live. So,
Well, I always say if you're going to buy a house, if you could walk to a hospital, that's a good start.
yeah,
Yeah, because if you had to, at least you could walk to emergency. So
yeah.
yeah, and I know a lot of people, unfortunately, can't do that. So,
Mm.
so what's next? What's next for Chris Wahbe? What's next for you? What's in the pipeline, mate? What are your hopes, dreams, and aspirations?
Yeah. No, well, for starters, I'm going to tell everyone how awesome this podcast is, and they should totally listen to
You're
it.
too kind.
No, look, I just want to keep doing what I'm doing. Want to get out there, present a little bit more if I can to inform and educate people out there as to what certifiers do, change that perception. it's probably worth giving it a plug. I'm not sure when this episode's going to be aired, but I'll be talking at an upcoming IPWEA Development Engineering Conference, which
Yeah.
is
When is
specific.
that, Chris?
So that's it's towards the end of November. It's up in Newcastle. It's actually a good one because it is geared towards local government engineers, which, yeah, I've been a member of the IPWEA for a long time, but sort of good to go back to your grassroots, so to speak, to tell everyone how your journey and how you came to where you are, type of thing. But yeah, definitely want to be involved with the IPWEA, UDIA. There's a AAC, which is sort of industry body for certifiers on those committees. And yeah, my role in the business at the moment is, yeah, although I am a registered certifier and I'm signing things off, like it's really important for me to get out there and speak to clients and get a feel of where people are at, where the growth's happening, and understand the market and different trends. So sort of try to make sure I'm on top of that as much as I can.
Yeah, no, I love it. Look, again, I'm sure most likely that would have passed, and we'll put a link to your presentation. And how can people reach out to you? What's the best way to reach out? We can put your LinkedIn bio in the bottom of the chat, but yeah, what would be the best way to reach out to you, mate?
Yeah, so you can yeah, LinkedIn connection, our website, odc.au. Otherwise, you can give me a call at any time. Send me an email, chris@ldc.com.au. Always keen for a chat to understand what people have got going on. If people think that, they are interested in certification but want to learn more about it, more than happy to talk about that, whether it links directly towards a position or not, or if it's just people want to know. I'm happy to always have that chat. So they're the best ways, I reckon.
Yeah, awesome. No, I appreciate that. And probably a good call not giving out your phone number, but I'm sure you'll be getting a flurry of emails.
Yeah, no dramas.
Awesome, Chris, mate. Thanks so much for coming on the podcast. It's been an amazing chat. Really got a lot of takeaways, not just how to fix the housing crisis, but how to, a young engineer might think about getting into certification and the journey that you've been on. And it's been really exciting to hear about, how you can add value, but, that you are trying to break the stereotype. And, I really hope that you're out there waving the flag, mate. And you've obviously got my support. So thanks so much again.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It's been fun.
Awesome. Thanking you.
All right, cheers.
See ya. Thanks so much for listening. I really hope you enjoyed that podcast. Please like and subscribe. It helps us reach so many more aspiring engineering professionals and entrepreneurs. You can find us on LinkedIn, Spotify, and YouTube.